Hi, I am Eduardo Rote, and this is from Caracas. Today, we're going to talk with Mr. Roberto Salvatierra, the representative of Bolivia, in a meeting who is being held here in Caracas about environment, and for the ministers of environment of the ALBA, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Americas. This meeting is going to treat different subjects, and we want to start asking Minister Salvatierra about it. What is all this meeting about?
Es una reunión donde, como países del ALBA,
This meeting is of the countries that make up ALBA. We have come together to talk about critical environmental issues, considering that internationally this issue is being dealt with too slowly, so the ALBA has taken lead. This first meeting here hopes to generate committees and to design public policies that concerns the environment to apply in the medium term.
En mediano plazo espero políticas públicas conjuntas acerca del medio ambiente.
Bolivia is a leader in the preservation of the earth. In Bolivia has make a law the rights of the earth. So people is really curious and waiting to know what's going to propose Bolivia in the United Nations in a few days ago. And especially what's going to happen in Peru in December. What are the proposals of Bolivia in the United Nations and in the meeting in Peru?
Bolivia está manejando, bueno, en primer lugar tengo que explicar que se han aprobado dos leyes.
Well, first I need to explain about the laws passed in Bolivia, which concern the rights of the Mother Earth. And by creating this new set of rules, the Plurinational Authority of Mother Earth has also been outlined. We have defined three main strategies: mitigation of climate change adjustment, and the mechanism of the shared forest. And so, there are three mechanisms designed to deal with climate change. I'm explaining all this to you because this is what we are going to present internationally. What is the particularity of these laws? Well, for example, the mechanism of the shared forest considers the trees from their seeds to their productive capacity. So we are managing a holistic approach, within which we consider different ecosystems, including the system within which the human develops itself. And so our intervention before the United Nations will be an all-inclusive one, inclusive of trees, water, biodiversity, of many matters that most of countries have forgotten about, or that believe, for example, that plants or animals do not have an environmental function. We support the idea that everything that exists in the world has a function, so we can kill an animal or destroy a plant, because everything has been created for something. With that premise in mind, we have developed this holistic mechanism, an integral mechanism. The Ministry of Environment and Water implement the law of Mother Nature, a ministry which in turn is creating an internal mechanism to link up all the vice ministries and other ministries when it comes to issues of the environment, water and oil. And so, the mechanisms we are going to bring to the pre-COP, a social conference in Peru, and the United Nations in New York, is the mechanism of the shared forest, which has already been approved in Warsaw. But we want to try and generate more discussion so as to encourage further resources for the initiative. We are going to present a carbon budget and how to manage such a budget. And then we are going to present another mechanism called Mechanism of Resilience and Sustainable Development. We give much emphasis to sustainable development. In the English language, sustainable development is related to economics, whereas for us it concerns the rejuvenation of land.
Originarian nations who live in America, they were very careful with the resources of the earth, with the animals. And we know that even in Europe, in the old times, Leonardo da Vinci had the ideas of people getting some time somewhere, somehow, to understand that animals have rights too. But the question is, what of all this politic of environment of Bolivia, what of this politic comes from the originarian nations, the Aymaras and the Incas, and what is part of the culture of the Western world that is not Bolivian?
El presidente Evo Morales ha priorizado a los saberes ancestrales. ¿Qué quiere decir?
President Morales has
Que se hacían
prioritized ancestral knowledge.
producciones limpias,
In the past,
se
there
hacían-
was also
o sea,
technology
en el
and
pasado
protection
también
of the
existía
environment.
tecnología y existía cuidado del medio ambiente. Por ejemplo, actualmente
Although
existe una
there are some
tecnología que
past
es bien difícil de
technologies
copiar
which are
desde el
complicated
pasado,
to
que
reproduce,
se llama
for example,
sucacoyos, donde se
sucacoyos,
hace riego
which is
subterráneo.
subterranean irrigation,
Entonces, hay
one
temas de
idea
esos
that
que
we have
nosotros
tried
hemos
to reproduce
empezado
from our
a
ancestors.
captar de nuestros antepasados. Por ejemplo,
We have
nosotros
also brought
empezamos
back medicinal herbs,
a utilizar hierbas
and so often
medicinales.
it is not necessary to
Entonces,
go to the
en muchos
pharmacy
casos se
because
evita
there's
ir a
specific
la
plants
farmacia
that
porque
exist
existen
that can help with some
plantas que
illnesses.
sí sanan de algún tipo de enfermedades. Entonces, estamos
So we are
recuperando todos los saberes
recuperating
ancestrales.
all these ancestral
Se está
techniques,
hablando con
and we are
nuestros
discussing
abuelos
with
y
our
los
elders
antepasados,
who have
y
shared
ellos
with us
tienen
ways, for
incluso
example, of knowing if it will
algunos
rain
temas para
tomorrow.
ver, por ejemplo, que va a llover mañana. Entonces, vamos más allá con ellos. Entonces, se está haciendo
We are compiling all of
recapitulación de
these
todos los saberes
techniques and
ancestrales
trying
y
to apply
empezamos
them
a
today
aplicar lo que
because
ellos
our
hacían, porque
ancestors
de
did
una u otra
protect
manera
and look
ellos
after the
cuidaban el medio
environment.
ambiente. Por ejemplo, ellos tenían la mentalidad
For example, they had a system whereby they would
tener,
eat
por
some
ejemplo, los
animals,
animales
but
comían una
not kill
parte,
an
pero
unnecessary
no los
amount.
aniquilaban. Entonces, eso es una contraposición con lo que pasa porque hay cacería
Today we
por
see, for
hobby, como
example,
decimos.
people taking up
Entonces, matan a
hunting
los
as a
animales
hobby,
indiscriminadamente.
safaris that
Hay
take tourist
safaris que
hunting,
cobran
and
demasiado
we are against
solo por
this.
matar un animal. Nosotros
La
estamos en
Paz, for
contra de eso.
example, has been the first
La
city to
Paz, por
prohibit
ejemplo, ha sido el
circuses
primer
with
país,
animals.
la primera ciudad en Latinoamérica que ha prohibido los circos con animales.
With
Eso
regards
es
to
lo
international
primero.
knowledge and
Lo
techniques,
segundo,
we
a
need some
nivel
of their
internacional,
technologies,
nosotros
but it is
también
not being
estamos empezando a
transferred.
manejar
We're
temas
asking for that
técnicos
knowledge to
que
be
manejan
shared.
otros países. El problema es que no tenemos una
And there are
transferencia
some good
tecnológica como
techniques
tal.
like water
Entonces
management in a
nosotros
situation of
estamos pidiendo
contamination,
vehementemente que haya
and we are
transferencia
still
de
to develop
tecnologías,
those
ya
technologies
que
and other
existen buenas
methods to
prácticas,
combat
por ejemplo, en
climate
el manejo de
change.
agua, que ahora hay mucha contaminación. Nosotros no tenemos mucho desarrollo de capacidades en esas temáticas. Temas de evitar el cambio
Nonetheless,
climático
we
con
have
alguna
formed
tecnología,
partnership
nosotros
with
no,
other
no
members of
estamos
the
viendo,
Global South,
pero hemos generado
and the
cooperaciones
current
sur-sur
political
con algunos
framework is
países y
helping
estamos
us to
generando
develop
alguna
them.
temática de apoyo en temas ambientales. Entonces,
For example, we have
el
treaties
entorno
with
también
our
nos
neighbors
está
to safeguard our
apoyando a cuidar
protected
ciertas
areas,
zonas. Por
which
ejemplo,
is
tenemos
important
tratativas
because
con
the
algunos
forests
países
are
para
like the
cuidar
lung for
nuestras áreas
Bolivia.
protegidas.
And so we have formed
Son
alliances
importantes,
with
son
countries
un
and some
pulmón
organizations,
para
but we
Bolivia.
are still waiting
Entonces,
for the
hemos
transfer of
generado
technology.
relaciones con varios países, hemos generado relaciones con algunas organizaciones, pero nos está faltando la transferencia de tecnologías como tal.
Bolivia has one of the problems that are common in other countries. For instance, the fracking. Fracking is this gas from schist is creating a lot of trouble in the States, in other countries. Are you creating or do you have a legislation about these laws for that? And what is the main problem that you have with these kind of techniques?
Nosotros actualmente hemos visto que existen diferentes tipos de contaminación.
Well, we have
Hemos
observed
creado
different
5
forms of
pilares que
contamination.
es importante mencionar.
So we have
Dentro del
created
tema
5
ambiental, no
pillars
solo
with
como
regards to the
ministerio, sino a nivel,
environment,
ambiental.
not
Los
just as a
5 puntos
ministry,
son
but
áreas
as a whole.
protegidas, biodiversidad, contaminación,
The 5 points are protected areas:
forestación y reforestación, y
biodiversity,
desarrollo
pollution,
energético. Ahora,
deforestation and
entrando
reforestation,
más
and
fuertemente,
energy
nosotros
development.
estamos tratando de atacar de frente el tema de las
Now,
contaminaciones.
we have a
Existe
different
mucha
approach to
contaminación a
pollution.
nivel nacional.
We have a lot of
Y, por
contamination
ejemplo, hemos creado
nationwide,
políticas,
so we have
por
devised
ejemplo, para
politics
sustancias peligrosas.
to
Estamos
attack, for
empezando a generar
example,
políticas
dangerous
para sustancias
substances,
peligrosas. Estamos generando políticas
politics
para
to
ozono,
protect the
y
ozone
estamos,
layer and air
estamos
contamination.
viendo, al hablar de ozono, estamos viendo la calidad
But
de
we have
aire y
really
todo eso.
concentrated
Pero lo
on
más
tackling river
importante, tenemos una
contamination, which
contaminación
has been polluted with
fuerte,
mercury.
por ejemplo, en los ríos con el tema de mercurio.
We have set up talks with various actors in the mining trade to discuss measures to mitigate the presence of mercury. We have signed the Minamata Protocol, so we continue to apply the anti-mercury criteria. We also favor the least harmful method of oil extraction. So we have also held talks with the hydrocarbon and oil sectors of Bolivia to ensure they apply more environmentally friendly techniques, and these have been talks with the executive powers and private companies, so as to guarantee that the environment becomes a social responsibility for all. All this as we try to accommodate the laws in Bolivia to the general Mother Earth law.
También estamos empezando a ver como ley marco madre tierra, empezar a modificar alguna normativa como la ley de medio ambiente y empezar a adecuarla a la ley marco madre tierra que también está relacionada con la constitución política del Estado.
It's amazing to see Bolivia being ahead in a lot of aspects of the defense of the earth. And your name, Salvatierra, means earth saver. And so I had a question for you. Is a difference between the countries of the ALBA and the rest of the countries of Latin America in this subject?
Sí, en temas ambientales siempre existen diferencias entre los países.
In environmental terms, there are always many differences with other countries. But in terms of problems, we have much in common. Many of our neighbors have the same environmental problems as us. So for us, our starting point is the shared problems, and internationally, of course, the same specific points are brought up. A point in common for all the countries of the ALBA are the forests, and so we all want to work together on that. Bolivia does not really have different problems to others, but we do have different politics, which is why not only do we look to ALBA for solutions, but also with other partners of the Global South. Why with the South? Because when we have a problem, they help us and vice versa. It is a more friendly relationship, one of cooperation.
It's common to see in many countries in Latin America that groups that defend, protect the environment become a political problem for the progressist governments. We see it in Venezuela and we see it all around. So how Bolivia had the same problem also with groups that represent the opposition to the government, and they have flags of the defense of the earth. How Bolivia is dealing with these groups?
Yes, well, we have identified these groups, and in many cases, they call themselves the conservationists. They are against the chopping down of a tree in the name of conservation. The point is that we are proposing a law, or rather, we have passed a law that deals with sustainable development so as to protect nature. But we are not a rich country. We have important needs to boost our productivity in sometimes wooded areas. For such cases, we have developed ways of managing these instances of contention. We tell the community that they need to protect the environment and that they cannot go and take down as many trees as they want, or just anywhere they want. We are also trying to tell the people of Bolivia that maintaining everything static is not the solution either. Maybe we might have to reinforce our environmental campaign. Many still don't know what the function of a tree is and the benefits it can bring. For example, with our protected areas, great part of the population still don't know what these protected areas mean. They think it is just to protect trees. But really, it is because within the areas, there are sources of water, small ecosystems, plants, a whole range of biodiversity. There are some very old indigenous communities who have been around since before Bolivia was Bolivia, who live in the protected areas. And so, by protecting these areas, but producing in other areas, we are not destroying the environment. What we are doing is granting a better quality of life for people, protecting the environment, but also creating spaces for productivity. So that's our arguments for the conservationists, who in most cases are talking about solely political issues.
It's a good thing to know that Bolivia is a leader and a strong partner of the ALBA countries in the defense of the earth and looking for a conscious solution of the problems of these lands. Are you optimist or pessimist about the future of the earth?
Si empezamos a generar grupos y trabajamos coordinadamente,
if we start to create groups and work together, then yes, I will be optimistic. The problem, in my opinion, is that so far all these conventions are advancing, but not how we would like them to. For a long time, the warning has been that the Earth's temperature will rise by 2 centigrade Celsius. Yet, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has claimed the Earth's temperature has gone up, on average, by 1 centigrade. And this is problematic because, well, the predictions for Bolivia were between 0.5 grades to 5.7, and already our temperature has gone up by 1 centigrade. So the prospect of reaching a rise of 5 centigrades are ever more palpable.
Sí podemos detener todo esto, pero con un trabajo coordinado y operativo.
So the way we see it is, yes, we can stop and slow down climate change, but it must be a coordinated and operative effort. But most of the time, the summits on climate change go no further than speeches. I can say that if we create more groups of interaction, if the ALBA is fortified, and if the G77 is strengthened, then we can start to get things moving along a lot quicker. The resources are there, but they are not being assigned to the right parts. But there are funds, but they come with conditions, so we won't give you the money unless you do this. And we are completely against those kind of politics, because we are sovereign countries and we have the capacity to decide how we will manage the funds. Neither do we want private companies to replace states, as this is sometimes the case. We want, as public actors, to take lead and that the private sectors work within the framework of the state. So to sum up, in some meetings there is pessimism, in others there is optimism. But we hope to generate more international coordination, because independently of the commercial side of things, we are forming important ties with the Global South, with our allies. We are generating new policies without depending on the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, because we really need to make some of these policies operative, and many countries are supporting us. So we are hoping more countries become more operative and less discursive.
We also hope that, because it's a question of life and death for the humanity. And congratulations to the Bolivian people, to the government of Evo Morales, and to you for this. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye. And this was from Caracas, Telesur.